Hello and welcome to episode 44 of the Boot Nerds podcast. I can't believe we've done this 44 times now, but we're here again. Jay, what's going on?
My friend, it's good to see you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for the 44th time, or hopefully more if you've rewatched or re-listened to some of the episodes. We really appreciate that. I'm excited. Josh, how are you?
I am cold. As I was telling you, we just got our first snowstorm of the year. Which is early because last year I don't think we got snow until like early December.
Right.
But now it's like early November and we got like 2 feet of snow overnight.
And when you say like you're cold and you get a snowstorm, I mean snowstorms in Canada, I guess, are nothing like what we get in Europe. Where I think they're mild and easy, but it's serious up with you guys, right?
Yeah, no. There's a reason why there's no winter season in Canada. I see people playing in the snow. I see YouTube videos of like, oh, I'm going to go take free kicks in the snow. And it's like, oh, wow, you're so dedicated to train like that. Josh, why don't you go do that? Well, because it's minus 15 and the ground is literally frozen ice. So that's why.
Right. Okay. So maybe you should why don't you actually just buy an indoor pitch and, like that would be amazing.
That's good. Just when we're done, just send over like $10 million and I'll buy a facility tomorrow. It's great.
Sorted. So let's make a Kickstarter here on the Boot Nerds podcast for Josh to buy his own indoor pitch so he can actually shoot indoors. That would be pretty nice.
Speaking of that, do you know the story about the indoor facility I was using?
Yeah, that was turned into a cannabis factory.
Yeah, and it looks like now that kind of deal fell through. So they put up all the signs, but they never actually started growing in there because I think the community was so mad. No, it's literally like right in the middle of like a subdivision. It doesn't make any sense to put one there. So I don't know what's going on with that now, but it looks like it's just sitting empty rather than being used, which is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, I reckon it's all the SR4U fans who've like ganged up and just send a lot of complaints. I don't know, but first things first, we got an exciting topic today. We're going to talk, as you have probably seen on the title, the big breakthrough that Liverpool had with their whole New Balance Nike business. But before we get into that, if you are new to the channel and you haven't subscribed already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification button to get a little ding and notification on your screen every time we release a video every week, every Thursday. And also, if you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comment section right down below. We're going to answer a bunch of questions in every episode. And finally, if you're having a good time listening to or watching the Boot Nerds podcast, please leave us a like on the video. It's going to help us tremendously in these times of new YouTube algorithms and God knows what. So thank you guys. We really appreciate it. And thank you for being here. So, yeah. Let's move on to today's topic because this is a big one, right? The whole shenanigans going on with New Balance suing Liverpool, who are claiming that New Balance are in the wrong. And actually there was a verdict that New Balance actually lost. And I don't think people have talked enough about it compared to how big implications this might have on the whole shirt market, but also on the football gear and boot market in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think this is detrimental to the success and survival of the New Balance brand because I think
probably not.
Their bread and butter is in the running shoe and casual wear market, right? That's where I would assume the vast majority of their sales come from. But they kind of struck gold with the whole Liverpool kit deal, right? Because when Adidas originally dropped Liverpool and they signed a new deal with Warrior, the club as a whole was a little bit down in the dumps, let's say. Right? They weren't necessarily contenders as they are now. So they kind of picked them up for cheap. And then Warrior was always New Balance when they decided that Warrior was not going to be a good football brand, which they probably should have understood in the first place. Oh, yeah. They switched it to New Balance, and that deal has gone on for, is it 5 years? I think that's what I read. It has.
I don't understand what you mean though. The Warrior isn't a good football brand. I mean, we got technologies such as glory holes and God knows what. I mean, fantastic. Who am I kidding? They were awful. But yeah, 5 years I think is what they said. I think they came in 15 and the deal was running until May 2020. And so the thing is that that obviously New Balance are trying to renegotiate because Liverpool are doing amazing these days, right? So obviously they want to continue being associated with the brand, and there is like this term in the contract that says that if Liverpool get a counter offer from another brand, say Nike or Adidas or Puma or whoever, New Balance can match it, and Liverpool will have to honor the term that's saying they choose New Balance. So they kind of have basically a right to first refusal, something like that, right? And so Nike came in, put down an offer, reportedly £30 million a year over a 5-year deal, and New Balance went in to match that. The thing is that Nike then offered to use 3 global non-football stars, such as Serena Williams and Drake, and there was one other whose name I don't remember.
LeBron James.
LeBron James, that's a pretty big name to forget, Jay. That's the big one, yeah. Probably the biggest of them all. But yeah, okay, I tend to forget. Anyway, they've said that they want to use these 3 non-football global superstars for marketing, and so the court ruled that New Balance couldn't match that offer from like a marketing side, and that would be bad for Liverpool to go with the New Balance offer, although the money is the same.
Yeah, well, basically Nike offered X amount of dollars, New Balance matched that, and then Nike said, hey, we can offer you value beyond monetary compensation, which realistically they can with Serena Williams, so I don't think is as important, although there are way more people that like tennis than you'd think, which I don't know. I've never been into tennis. I think it's cool to watch highlights sometimes, but it's never something that I've been super into.
But also just because Serena is like she's more than just she's more than just a tennis player, and especially making Liverpool more popular in the States. I mean, obviously LeBron and Serena and Drake, obviously, they just spread out into every territory, and get in, basically touch on new segments. And obviously Drake would put Liverpool firmly in the lifestyle segment as well. So I think that's a brilliant thing, and also because Serena is fighting for women's rights as well. On top of that, so she is a very like having her as a marketing spokesperson for Liverpool is invaluable. And there's no way New Balance can compete with those 3, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, that means that now Liverpool can go in and say, okay, after the deal is done next year, thank you and goodbye, and then they move on with Nike, meaning that New Balance lose their biggest shirt club asset, right? What's left?
By far. I mean, I couldn't. Who do they have? A Spanish team, yeah.
They have Athletic Bilbao, who isn't called Athletic Bilbao. They're called Athletic Club, and they're from Bilbao. But yeah, they have those. They have FC Porto. They have Lille, I think. Still, they have Celtic, and
those are probably the big ones. We're probably missing one, but it's not really that important because ultimately, out of all of those, Liverpool just won the Champions League. That's the big one.
It sucks to lose them, right?
Right.
But does this mean that New Balance will slowly but steadily become irrelevant in the shirt market, do you think?
In the shirt market, for sure. Because I just think that the only way you're going to get a big club now is you have to pay the money. Like there's no big club that's going to become available that's going to sign with a brand like New Balance for less money. And it's the funny thing with New Balance in the football market is that they're viewed as this kind of bottom feeder company because they're not as popular as Nike, Adi, Puma. But New Balance has been around for a long time. It's a very reputable brand. It's a very, very big sportswear company. They just don't necessarily have the reputation in the football industry, right? So I don't think that they could sneak in like a Joma or a Kappa or some of these smaller, like a Macron even, and maybe work out one of these deals with even a smaller club. I think everyone expects them to pay a fair amount of money because they're New Balance.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially, having had Liverpool when they won the Champions League, they know that they have money. It's like a fact. And if they have to replace Liverpool, so to speak, and get in another, top European club, they're going to have to basically pay a lot of money because Puma are making moves. Adidas and Nike have historically got a lot of money to spend on that. And so I don't really know where they can kind of jump in from the side and take over. The last club we were thinking of, by the way, is Sevilla. So Sevilla.
There's a few other factors too in why this deal went through and why New Balance's appeal was denied. We didn't mention is LeBron James actually he's a 2% shareholder in Liverpool.
Right.
So he bought, I think it was in 2000, it might have been in 2015. He paid $6.5 million for 2% of the team. And apparently that share is now worth 32 million plus. So, I mean, he did a good job. If he obviously has an invested interest in promoting the club, and he's on a lifetime contract with Nike. So it kind of all ties together there as far as his involvement in this deal. And another thing was, and I was reading this, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it was a distribution thing basically.
Yes,
I think out of if they sold $457 million total of Liverpool shirts sold. I don't know if it was last year or in total, but 440 of that 457 was in the UK. So they're really not globalizing the Liverpool brand. Are those numbers right, Jay?
I think they're not exactly.
They're close. They're somewhere in the
close.
ballpark. But it was like 90% plus of all the Liverpool shirts being sold and distributed were in the UK, which you expect them to sell the vast majority in the UK.
But still, there's a huge commercial opportunity if you can spread those numbers out. Because if you make them more like a global, and I think that's the plan from Nike's side, that they simply want to have a more global distribution. They talked about that they wanted to have 6,000 stores worldwide, of which only 500 should be Nike owned. So they really want to spread out the whole Liverpool distribution. New Balance said, however, that they wanted to distribute the Liverpool shirts to approximately 40,000 retail doors globally, and that's completely insane. And I think that was also one of the reasons that that they were basically told, this is not a thing. You can't use this as an argument to counter Nike's LeBron James, Serena Williams, Drake point here.
Yeah, it was the judge basically concluded that some of the statistics that New Balance was giving out as like a counter argument that were just made up statistics that weren't realistic at all. But I think Nike. What I hope Nike does with this Liverpool kit is similar to what they've done with PSG, similar to what they've done with Barcelona. They're kind of trying something like that with Inter and some of the new stuff that's coming out. They're making it as much about the club and as much about the fashion side, the sportswear side of things, which I think is cool. And I think there's definitely potential given the extreme popularity of Liverpool right now. Because look, let's face it, you can be a fan of who you want to be a fan of, but the team that's winning is going to have more fans than when they're losing all the time. It's just how it is, right? And that's the trend that we've seen with Nike and the clubs they sign more than any other brand, is that they really, look, Manchester United stopped winning. Hey, guess what? Go sign with Adidas. We don't want you anymore. You would think a club as popular and as globally known as Manchester United, they would never want to let go of, but they did. And I don't know. I know Adidas has done okay with the Manchester United stuff, but I mean, you have to look at Nike. I really view them as kind of an industry leader, not just in regards to footwear, but they tend to set a lot of trends in the industry.
Why do you think they were, they let it happened that they lost Man City to Puma? Like obviously Manchester City have been winning for a long time, right? And there's no sign of them slowing down. Obviously, they might not be able to go head to head with Liverpool this year, but I mean, they were champions last year and they went far in the Champions League. So I'm just scratching my head. If they are this much on top of everything and they kind of decide whether they want a team or not, why did they allow Puma to take over? Or was Puma's deal or their offer just so gigantic and ridiculous that they allowed it to happen?
You're right. What do you think? And I was a little bit confused when that happened as well. But I think as much as winning is important, I think Nike's obviously very driven by sales.
Right.
And I'm not sure how well the Manchester City kit has done for them. I also think it really matters which players they have as endorsement deals on the club. And I know De Bruyne is a big one for them in the Phantom Vision. He's basically, at this point, he's the face because Coutinho basically just decided he didn't want to be the face anymore. That's another long story.
Oh, yeah.
But,
But that just made me think, like, I was also thinking, why are Nike then keeping Chelsea, for instance? Obviously, that might have been because of the Hazard links. Now he's gone. Are they that interested? Maybe Chelsea are on a rise now with the beautiful football that Frank Lampard is playing. But it was just interesting to me because, you know, obviously Manchester City were just right up there. Maybe they saw it coming that, okay, in order to free up the money that we need to get Liverpool, we should basically get out of our Chelsea or Manchester City deal. And they decided on Manchester City. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and there's so many factors that we don't know. I'm sure they have all these like fancy algorithms that they paid a ton of money for that makes decisions for them on what they should and shouldn't invest in. But as a whole, they seem to make pretty good decisions in terms of what they do. I know there's been some backlash with the Puma Man City kits as of late that I've seen in the news.
Like what?
It had to do, ultimately it was a very racial thing. Probably not something worth going into, but I know there was some drama. It was a lot of anti-Semitic stuff happening regarding the kit and them providing the, because they're the kit supplier for Israel as well.
Oh.
And I guess there were some supporters in the stadium putting up some signs that were unhappy about the Puma. I don't know. I was reading an article about it. It's not that important, I guess. But
I literally haven't heard of that.
You haven't heard that?
That's ridiculous. Just keep that.
People are nuts, right?
In general, keep that away. You know, the anti-Semitism. Is that the word? Anti-Semitism?
Jay, I don't know. I'm not.
No, but you know, that stuff has to end, right? But also keep it away from football. It's like a football kid. Come on. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I basically hate when
Jay. You know what else I think though has a thing with these deals is I think that Nike, like, do you think Nike would have hung on so tightly to the Barcelona kit, like, unless if Messi wasn't there? And obviously part of the reason why Barca has been so successful for so long is largely due to Messi. But I almost feel like that kit deal is almost like, hey, you know what? Let's just kind of block Adidas from doing a ton of promotion with Barcelona. Because think about it, if Nike had the option of promoting Cristiano Ronaldo on Real Madrid and Adidas had if Nike and Adidas could trade those deals, I'd be really curious to know if they'd be willing to do that. Just based on where those players were at those times and how important both of those guys were for their marketing. But I'm kind of thinking, like, I know that Van Dijk's obviously a big name for them, probably the biggest Nike guy in the Liverpool club at the moment. But you have so many Adidas guys at Liverpool right now. Do you not think in the back of their head they're like, you know what, we need to get this before Adidas tries to get it and screw that up?
And well, that's another thing. Maybe that's just, you know, the danger of Adidas swooping in and taking over Liverpool because of their success, but maybe also because they have a lot of good connections and they were there before Warrior and New Balance came in, so they do have connections within the club, right? I think maybe that matters a little bit. I'm not really sure, but I think for Barcelona, as well as PSG, it has been a Nike club for so long. It's kind of, you know, it's become a part of the Nike DNA, just like they have Brazil, they have their Barcelonas. It's, you know, I think they want to be associated with the Brazil and Barcelona way of playing football. That is a very Nike way of playing football in Nike's minds, I guess, right? So it might have something to do. Of course, it would suck for Nike if Adidas came in and took over and managed to market the hell out of Messi and the club together. But I think they would have held on even if Messi hadn't been there. It's just my guess.
Yeah, entirely possible for sure. It's hard. These kit deals are so complicated.
And speaking of, you talked about Virgil van Dijk at Liverpool. Obviously, he's a Nike player, and that brings up another interesting question, because obviously Sadio Mane has become a New Balance player, and I'd argue they're only big player. Sorry to all the other New Balance endorsed players out there, but Sadio Mane is like the Ronaldo and Messi of New Balance, right? He's one of the best players in the world, has been for a couple of seasons, and he's wearing the Furon, which is like the colorway he's wearing, by the way, is so old. I don't really understand. Anyway, what is going to happen to him when Liverpool come and take over? He's probably going to honor his agreement with New Balance. That makes sense. Or Liverpool Liverpool and Nike might buy him out. Probably Nike will buy him out to have him in the vapors, most likely, that he wore before. What do you think about that?
He's definitely going to draw attention from other brands once his contract is up.
But do you think he's going to honor his contract? That's my point.
I think he has. It's pretty rare, I think, for players to try and, I guess, bully their way out of a contract. We've seen a few guys try to do it pretty unsuccessfully. I feel like the brands kind of know what they're doing when it comes to this kind of thing. And New Balance themselves already went through this with the Fellaini situation. So I don't... And they won that battle. So I think that if Mane were to try to do the same thing, Mane, I would say, on another level compared to Fellaini for sure, and certainly in terms of popularity. But I don't see getting out of a contract. I'm not sure how long his contract is good for. But once that is up, yeah, I really strongly doubt that New Balance would be up for re-signing him at all. And honestly, I feel like, and we talked about this a little bit prior to this making this podcast, this could potentially mark the end of New Balance in the football industry. Because look,
and that's a big claim, but yeah, it could.
Right? Like the boots have been good as of late. Right? They started okay. They got a little iffy. They're pretty good now. I'm not mad at anything New Balance is making in terms of footwear.
No.
But that's not been the reason why they've been successful in the football industry up until this point.
No, that has been Liverpool. Let's not beat around the bush here. And now they're going to lose. They're not only going to lose the branding and the exposure they get from being, right there on the Liverpool kit, but it's just their entire window to the world being on the Liverpool kit. So their boots, which isn't endorsed by a lot of players even, it's just not going to be very visible. And we see what happens to brands that make solid boots, Umbro for instance, that aren't very visible. They just have a harder time selling their boots because the demand just isn't there. So I'm just afraid that, when the Liverpool kit goes and Liverpool go to Nike and, New Balance are going to lose a big bargaining chip when selling into stores, right? Because then when they sell in their boots, they have obviously all their clubs, but they also have the Liverpool story. They won't be able to do that anymore. So obviously the specialist stores like Unisport and, well, mostly us because we're the most special, that, will obviously still want to take New Balance boots because they're good, right? But it's just for, the everyday other sports doors out there, will it be as interesting to them?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Now you're getting into the business side of things, but ultimately this is what's important. These companies exist as businesses. They're not just there to make cool boots and cool shirts for you to buy. They're making those to profit off of them. That's why these companies exist, and rightfully so. I used to work at a football store, as many of you know, and as I've probably mentioned at least 40 times on this podcast at least.
I think I've heard it once before.
Right? But what I was really surprised to learn, and definitely the part of the world that you're in is very important, but being in Canada, when it comes to boots, Nike or Adidas. Nobody really comes in and asks for other things. It's very uncommon. You're going to sell 50 Nike and Adidas boots for every one Puma, right? But Puma has some clubs that you want to carry their shirts in the store. And in order to have those shirts, you have to have an account with the brand. And guess what? We're not going to give you an account unless you carry X amount of shoes as well, even though you know they're probably not going to sell. So we had to have all of these Puma boots. And back when I was working, it was the V110 series and like the V111, the boots that legitimately nobody wanted. Nobody wanted a pair of V Constructs at the time. Trust me.
Yeah, they weren't the best.
So we had these in the store on the shelf. I don't remember ever selling a pair. I think I told you we had a challenge between me and the other girl at work there. The V110 in the yellow and red color. Whoever sold them was like the ultimate salesperson, and nobody could do it. It was impossible. But we only had these boots just because we wanted the shirts. And that's the case with a lot of brands. And New Balance, I think, is one of them. I mean, I don't know what the sales figures are for Unisport, but in general, across the board, I don't think that New Balance footwear has sold that well. The football boots, at least, right? But everybody is carrying them because they really want to have the Liverpool kit, because the Liverpool kit is popular because they're winning everything right now.
But wouldn't it suck if New Balance boots were taken out of the market?
It would.
Mean, we're slowly seeing Under Armour disappearing. I mean, I don't even know what's up with them, but they're not releasing their boots anymore. I mean, I don't know where you can buy the boots that Depay is wearing that are called... Are they the Magnetic OSLs?
They might be. But they might be. I don't understand what Under Armour is doing. They're not even marketing it themselves on like make an Instagram post about it.
Exactly.
Like, it takes 2 seconds.
But I just don't want that to happen to New Balance, because they're one of the few brands out there that can really product performance-wise, they can really compete with the big three. And it would be such a boring world if we only had Nike, Adidas, and Puma making, proper football boots. We will always have Mizuno, and Mizuno will always have our backs and make some of the best boots out there. But it would be nice if there was a fifth big company that really sold a lot of boots and had attention of more than just the most hardcore nerds.
Yeah, and right now I think New Balance is that fifth company. And I guess it's just going to come down to what they're happy with. The one thing I will say about New Balance staying or going based on losing this Liverpool kit deal is I don't really think that them having Liverpool and even Sadio Mane wearing New Balance boots ultimately makes them sell more boots. Do you? Like, I don't think anyone's buying a New Balance boot because they're a Liverpool fan. Maybe it exists. I'm sure there's somebody that's done that, but the vast majority of the boots they sell, I don't think there's any connection between being a Liverpool fan and buying New Balance boots.
Maybe not, but it's at least this whole top of mind thing. When you have a relationship with the brand and you know who they are, it's like a global legit thing, that they make good stuff. They have a club like Liverpool. You've seen any Premier League or Champions League match, you know that New Balance is the sponsor of Liverpool, right? So when you then are presented with New Balance boots, you will recognize that they are doing good stuff, that they are, one of the big players. And that might be enough to pique your interest and make you look into them as a real alternative. And I think maybe when the Liverpool thing is over and their contract is up, and it's only Porto and Sevilla and Celtic, Lille. I mean, how many boot sales do Lille drive? I don't think it's much. No hate, Lille, but you don't get the same amount of credibility from people who aren't the most hardcore nerds out there, who just, are mildly into boots, if you know what I mean. Does it make sense?
No, you're right. It's a reputation-based industry, and Liverpool definitely helped to build that reputation. I don't know. I guess we'll see, but the answer to this question is not going to be known probably for another 2 years, because I have to imagine they're probably 2 years ahead in terms of what's been planned, what's been paid for, what's possibly even already produced. So, yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to get a next generation of New Balance stuff for sure. Will we get a second and third generation of what's to come? I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if we didn't.
No, and we also got to remember that now New Balance will have a considerable amount of money that they can take elsewhere. And we discussed previously that it might be difficult for them, but they still have a lot of money. And money can get you a lot of places, right? So who knows who they might go for next.
But you know what? That's a good point, Jay, because I don't know, is $30 million a year, this new deal, is this a world record deal?
No, not to my knowledge, but it's a lot of money.
It's up there, right?
It's a very expensive deal. It's a very good deal for Liverpool. And New Balance were ready to spend that.
Yes.
So they do have the money and they have the willingness to spend, and they will probably also realize, hey, this is guys, this is a problem. They don't just probably accept that, okay, they wave the white flag. Our biggest club is Athletic Club or Sevilla. Sorry to those clubs, but it's not Liverpool, right? They need something big. So they will probably be aggressive in the next year or two and see where they can kind of squeeze in and have a new Liverpool with a club that might want to, take a different direction. And that might really, I think that's the way to go for them right now. Because if they just accept that this is the way it is, they don't get in another club, then they will struggle in a 3-4 year span.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate it because the boots are amazing. For at least if we compare it to how many people know them, these boots are super underrated because they're actually really good football boots.
Yeah, I unlike so many small brands, I don't think you can put on a New Balance boot and say, wow, this is truly inferior to the more popular models, right?
It's not.
Like you said, they have the know-how and they're a legit company in the footwear space where the tech and material that they're introducing is legitimately very good. Where often I think small brands have had this reputation of you're kind of getting this like second grade of what Nike and Adidas are doing, and you don't get that sense with New Balance anymore. I don't want to say that they weren't there at one point. I mean, Jay, they made a football boot that looked like a Croc almost.
Yeah, they didn't have the strongest lineup at one point. Let's just put it like that. But with some of the new stuff that is coming out, they make great product, and they will make great product in the future as well. So I think it's just about getting in a new club to replace Liverpool as like their global, what do you call it? The main thing. Help me out. English.
Global awareness.
Global awareness, yeah. It's global like the global headline club. This is like the powerhouse of the brand, right?
Yeah.
The cash cow. It just brings in the money, brings in the attention, brings in the exposure. I think if they do that, they're going to be fine because the product is there. They make good stuff. I think if not, they're going to struggle, and that's probably the answer to the whole question.
But you know what I was even thinking too? Like, I think New Balance, what they did with Liverpool, one, I think they got very lucky because who was ever going to predict that Liverpool in a 5-year span would go from where they were to where they are now?
Under Brendan Rodgers, you're right. When Klopp came in, I think we started seeing stuff after the first. Yeah, you're right.
It's a dramatic improvement over the course of 5 years.
I mean, they did have that season where, with the Gerrard slip and all that stuff, and they did pressure Man United in their late successful years. So they have been there for a while. They just haven't been title contenders on a consistent basis. And I feel they are now.
Mm-hmm, definitely. But what I was getting at here is I think that what New Balance did was a huge risk. And they're really the first new company to break into the football industry and be successful to that extent. Because I'm thinking of the Tottenham Under Armour deal. That didn't go well.
No.
Who was the club that wore Reebok and they played in Reebok Stadium? It was in the Premier League.
Bolton?
Was it Bolton?
Yeah.
It was Bolton, right? That's another huge investment, I'm sure, at the time. I'm not sure what the numbers were. But to sponsor the club and then basically sponsor the name of the stadium, I can't imagine that's very cheap. And I mean, again, Reebok did not end up really going anywhere in the industry. They're now owned by Adidas, so there's really no reason why they would want to come back. But I mean, New Balance is the first brand to be successful in terms of actually breaking into the market. And I think they've built a reputation at this point where maybe you're not a huge fan of New Balance boots, but you're not going to hear New Balance and say, that's a joke.
And maybe this is something we also need to remember, that we shouldn't underestimate New Balance. They have spending power, and they've proven that they can be successful with a club like Liverpool. So they understand how to do it, right? So maybe we should.
They are a lucky company right now. They struck gold with Liverpool. They struck gold with, you're not familiar with the NBA, but Kawhi Leonard, he was playing for the Toronto Raptors. Now he's back he's in LA. He left Jordan Brand, signed with New Balance, and everyone's like, oh, he's got no personality. He doesn't even do Instagram. Like, the guy is like non-existent on social media. Doesn't even talk barely. And then he goes and wins the NBA championship, and he's the MVP, and now he's like arguably the best basketball player in the world. And of course, New Balance just happened to sign him and give him a signature shoe. Like, they just, right now, they have this thing where they seem to know who to sign for seemingly as little as possible, and it just works.
But that makes them geniuses. They also signed Sadio Mane when no one really gave a thought, and now he just, now he's being considered one of among the best players in the world. Let's just put it like that. I mean, they saw that, and obviously it was an easy choice given that he was playing for Liverpool, but you just got to hand it to them. And I think, you know what, maybe I'm not so worried for them after all when I think about it. They just got to get it right.
Yeah,
no pressure.
They're smart. I think they're smart.
Yeah, they will be. Now, what else is smart is that if you have any questions and you want our answers to them, you can do the clever thing and leave them in the comment section right down below, because that was an amazing transition into our next segment, which is to answer some questions. We've had a lot. Thank you for those. Before we do that, if you've enjoyed the content so far, leave us a like on the video. We're going to really appreciate it. And the first question is from JJ. Nike, it's not a question, it's a statement. Nike should really bring back Nike skin that was used in the Hypervenom one. I agree, I loved it, but the question is, will it make sense in the world of Flyknit? And was there a reason that Nike dropped it back then?
I think it makes sense. Why not?
To bring it back?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
If it's what the people want, and it seems like there's a good amount of people that want it. The thing is, though, they've at this point they've kind of ruined the whole Hypervenom name for the most part.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Could they bring it back as a Phantom Venom? Sure. I just think that for these companies, it's so hard to go back, especially Nike, because what they're really pushing with each new variation of their boots is this progression in technology, and what we're doing now is better than what we were doing before. So for them to just go back and do what they were doing 4 or 5 years ago, now it's like, okay, we're just contradicting ourselves at this point. All our marketing that we're telling you is nonsense. Yeah,
that was going to be my next point, because we kind of saw with the Phantom Venom that they went back to the striking zones and the striking fins. But it feels to me like that if they want to go back to a technology, and the same thing goes for Adidas, we have to wait some years until Nike feel that it's not it's really not like being two-faced. Going back to that technology, because they can tweak it and make it feel modern again, instead of just going back to what Nike skin was on the Hypervenom one. I don't think we're going to see it, because it would just be an admission of, hey, what we've done the last 6 years it hasn't been as good. We should just have kept this around for 6 years. And I don't think they want to do that, because they want to, at least give people the perception that they are the innovators, and whatever new stuff they put out is the best that you can get your hands on.
Yeah, I hope we get to a point in the industry where retro, like just remakes of old boots, become a thing. Not necessarily as limited edition releases, but it's so common in basketball. It's so common in the sneaker world. I just think it'd be so cool for Nike and Adidas especially to start doing that kind of thing.
Now, the whole thing leads me into another question, which is from Skill and Shoot. He asks, do you feel like the Hypervenom Finish 2 with the softer honeycomb upper is underrated? The Hypervenom Phantom 1 gets so much praise, which is fair. It's a lot of people's favorite boot of all time. But the Finish V2, this one, basically provides the same feel and comfort while being more responsive and performing better. And that's a good point. I mean, the first finish wasn't very good, let's just be honest. But when they went back on the honeycomb-like upper, basically the Nike skin from the Phantom Venom, Hypervenom. Wow. I hate this naming system. The Hypervenom Phantom 1, obviously, when they put that Nike skin upper kinda on the finish 2.5, as I like to call it, V2, call it what you want. It did, of course, improve. They still had the cables to keep your foot locked in. And it is a fair argument that if you are hunting for Hypervenom Phantom 1s and you can't find them, then you can go and look for the updated finish, because it's actually a solid boot that comes very, very close to the sensation of the Phantom 1s. I just feel that they are, for me, the upper feels ever so slightly stiffer and slightly thicker than they did on of course, the first generation of the Hypervenom Phantom 1, but also even the 1.5s where the upper was amended a little bit. It just feels like it's not entirely the same, although it might just be me. But yes, it's a very good shout.
You're not wrong. I agree with him that the Finish version 2, because it's not really a Finish 2. It was the Hypervenom Phantom 2 Finish 1. Great.
Yeah.
Nike's great. I'm really hoping that the next Superfly is like the Mercurial Fly Super. Like let's just take the same thing and just reverse it all, because that's not confusing for everybody at all. But I felt like what was missing with the Finish is that the Flywire and the liner, which I think is ultimately what makes the boot feel a lot different. Also the one-piece upper construction, that all adds structure to the upper that wasn't there on the original Phantom. So from that perspective, it does perform better. It's way more responsive. It doesn't overstretch like the original did. But the fact that the original did overstretch and was so soft and had this like almost non-existent liner, that was the thing that everybody liked. And while I think if you had the Phantom 1, there's things about the Finish that you would like. People who really like the Phantom 1 are stuck on that boot because really the Finish didn't end up feeling like it.
Exactly. And it feels a lot like it. And it's probably the closest thing, as I said, you can get to the Phantom 1, even the Phantom 1.5 with the thicker upper. But it just feels a little less natural compared to what the Phantom 1s did. And in terms of lockdown performance, yes, it's arguably better, but that was perhaps not what made the Phantom 1s so great, like you said. So,
yeah.
So I think Skills and Shoot makes a very good point, but I think there's also a reason that people haven't flocked to the Finish V2 or whatever you want to call it, because it's not exactly the same.
Yeah, there's a huge emphasis in the modern industry on technology and performance, which is very, very important. I mean, look at the Mercurial series. It's thrived on that concept for years and years and years, and they're legitimately very good boots because of it. But I think what still makes a football boot good or bad is the way that it feels. And that's something that it's not measurable. You have to try them and feel it. And the feel of a Phantom 1 is unlike any other football boot Nike has produced since.
Exactly. For good and bad. So, it ain't no busy. Best time of the year to buy boots in terms of price.
I don't think that there is a best time of the year anymore. I know that there's going to be people that say, oh, Black Friday is your go-to time. And definitely during the holiday season, I think stores are more inclined to sell boots at a discounted price. But at the same time, I think this year more than ever, we've seen more colorway packs. I want to say there's double the colorway packs this year than what we've seen in previous years, which means that these stores have way more inventory than they would normally have, which means that they have to get rid of it. So I think at any given moment, for the most part, there are sales to be found.
True, but, and I know it's the easy answer, but Black Friday, Cyber Monday, hell, even Singles Day, because that's also a thing I found out, which is ridiculous, by the way. But that's a whole other thing. I think when you look at these really like big shopping holidays, and of course the holiday season in general, you just see this is where stores in general want to push product. This is like where all the emphasis lies, all the money has been put behind marketing and also having the best deals around. So it might be slightly older models and colorways you'll be able to buy at a massive discount, but they will be there, and there's probably a larger selection, because I would say that some retailers are saving the best for those days, right? Because you want to stand out. So I would probably say around the holiday season, that is a great place to really get something nice. But you're right. I mean, there's a sale going on all the time, and you can find great deals all the time. I'm just gonna say, if you want the best timing, will be on Black Friday on unisportstore.com. Shameless plug, because we will have a lot of insane deals. I'm just gonna say.
Okay, can I also give another piece of advice when it comes to sales? Because I'm sure you get these questions all the time.
If and only if it includes unisportstore.com.
It does include Unisport. Okay. So here, hypothetically, Tim wants to buy these boots from Unisport and they're on sale right now, but he wants to know, he's like, they're a really good price and they have my size. Should I wait another week to see if they get discounted even more? Well, that wait at your own risk. Because this is what I'll say. A lot of stores, I know Black Friday is like a specific day, but their stores already starting their Black Friday sales. And maybe come the actual day of Black Friday, you'll get another 5% off. But that's also when there's 100 times more people shopping for that exact same boot that you want that the store only realistically has 5 or 6 pairs of.
Yes.
So my advice is, if you're a common size, like an 8, 9, 10, you find a boot that's available in your size for a price that you think is pretty good. Don't wait, buy it, because the longer you wait, the more likely it's going to sell out. If you wear like a size 12 or a 13, uncommon size, maybe you can wait and no one's going to buy it because no one wears that size. But I'm just saying, waiting is not always the best thing when it comes to getting a really good deal.
That's you said something very important. If it's a price that you think is fair, so if you find an offer that you think might be fair, and after all, 5%, yes, that it is money, but it's not going to change the world for at least. And it might sound stupid, because we have the resources and stuff. I know not everyone does have those resources, and 5% is a lot. But if you find a price that you think, you are comfortable paying that, do it, pull the trigger, because they might not be there. And that's the worst feeling in the world, that when something is gone and you could have bought it, but you didn't, and you still want it. Yes. Okay. So Daniel Kim, will Nike be going to, will they make a remake of the Vapor? I think he means the Flyknit Ultra, Vapor Ultra, Flyknit Ultra, yeah.
I think it's more likely that they do a Flyknit Ultra 2 than a Flyknit Ultra remake.
I don't think we're going to see a Flyknit Ultra remake, to be honest. It was a very limited thing. It basically was the transition from the Vapor 11 into the Vapor 12, and I think that is all it's going to be. There will be a ton of boots for them to remake before the Flyknit Ultras, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know what? It was an interesting... I'm just thinking about that, because they really put that out there to say, like, hey, this might be the future of mercurials. Does everyone like it? What if, I know it was it's arguably the best mercurial ever made.
What if people hated it? Yeah.
What if people hated it? And it's like, oh man, we already made all these Vapor 12s. What are we going to do now?
But they would have had the chance to really, obviously they would have had to follow through with the Vapor 12, and that would then have sucked. But it would give them the time to really adjust for the Vapor 13. And maybe they wouldn't have made this update and gone back to synthetic if the Vapor Flyknit Ultras and early Vapor 12 models would have completely flopped. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just, the Flyknit Ultra is such a weird one, because it's one of the only instances that I can think of where they kind of made this one-off product and it was better than everything else they made.
Yeah.
Like that's, usually you get these like one-off weird limited edition things and they're kind of like gimmicky and there's something good about it, but it's not as good as the regular thing. The Flyknit Ultra is like, wow, this is sick. Why don't they have this all the time?
It's just ridiculous that they release this and say, okay, this is a glimpse of the future to come. And then they release the Vapor 12, which to many people is inferior. I mean, that must be kind of a weird feeling at the Nike HQ. But that's how it goes. At least the Vapor 13 is amazing. And I'd personally take that over the Flyknit Ultra. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think for what a mercurial is supposed to be, the current Vapor is better.
Yeah, I agree. But there will also be a lot of people who strongly disagree with us. And I understand why they would do that. Anyway, new question here from Zachary Thomas. He has a pair of 18.1 dreads and he loves the fit and feel while playing. But I would like a little more lockdown. What type of grip socks would y'all recommend? Thank you. Well, you're welcome. I mean, it's basically a question about what the best grip sock out there is. Personally, I would go for the Falcon 4 grip which is, in my opinion, the best grip sock there is. It's one of the nicest, most premium feeling socks in general, and the grip is also the best for me because it's rather aggressive. If you really want grip and lockdown, you can go look at the Storelli Speed Grips that are like, they grip a lot and you really have to get used to that. Or you can also look at Socks Pro, which is basically a, think True Socks, but with better pads that don't really get stuck under your feet.
I would recommend going to a local stationery store and buying some white Elmer's glue. Just squirt it in the boot. I'd say a quarter to half of the bottle, and then just stick your foot in, go to bed, wear them all night, wake up in the morning, ultimate lockdown.
That sounds perfect. And I think
idea.
Josh is so confident about it that if it doesn't work out for you, you can basically sue him for a lot of, because, don't do that.
Well, no, because at that point, just make sure you're wearing socks. When you take the boots off, the socks will come with the boots.
The socks will come with the boots.
But the socks won't slip at any point at all.
That is a brilliant idea. It's not going to be nice to put them back on, but I mean, that is the ultimate, lockdown prevention hack I've ever heard.
But you know what? That's kind of that's a very extreme thing that you probably shouldn't do. But
you think?
That's what a good pair of grip socks kind of feels like.
Yes.
It's like your feet are actually glued in the boots.
This is what the Storelli grip, Speed Grip is like. Because it really grips, and it will be too much for some people because it's aggressive. Anyway, there will be one from Anthony Bond. I have a question. Well, let's answer it. Do you think that the Puma One is slowly reverting back to the Evo Speed? To me, with every new model they bring out, it's becoming more and more like the old boots. Lace loops are slowly disappearing. What do you think? Because it's an interesting question.
I think that Evo Speed is still a better name because I think people understand it.
Yes.
Speed is universally understood. Even if you don't know anything about football boots, where you ended up with boots like the Puma One, and that's just like, what does that mean?
It's not
it doesn't
really
mean anything.
No.
Like, I think a name is important in terms of affecting your first impression of a product if you don't know anything about football boots, right?
Yeah.
Like you see Nike Mercurial Vapor. That sounds fast. It sounds high tech. It sounds like it gives you an interesting impression. It tells you a little bit about what that product's about. Where Puma One, I think Puma Future is a good name, but I don't think Puma One is a great name.
No.
And I understand what they're going with. Like it's the one boot. It's like all in one. It does everything, but I don't think that people pick up on that.
And speaking of Evo Speed, have you seen that Griezmann has actually been using a pair of his, actually a couple of pairs of his old Evo Speed SLs lately in training?
I did see that.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't like the Puma Future 4.1 upper, which is considerably stiffer than the previous models. It was just a thought that popped into my head.
I saw that too, and I was thinking that it was probably more just slump related in that he hasn't been playing that well, and maybe he's just trying to change things up. And because I don't know, I would do the same thing if I was a player that was like supposed to be scoring goals and I wasn't doing that. The one thing I could switch very easily was my boots, and that's probably what I would do.
Gotcha. So a question from the Arnie C91. Hey guys, as we're approaching prime winter football conditions, well, you already have them in Canada, does the AntiClogged sole plate provide a significant advantage over the standard soft ground plate? There's a very simple answer to that question, and that answer is yes, it does. I don't know if you've ever seen a video where people test AntiClogged. I know Josh has made one. We've also made one at Unisport. We made a big mess. We had a lot of mud and stuff, but we actually went to show that it does indeed work. When there's a lot of mud and a lot of, it's a mess, right? When the pitch is a mess, AntiClogged really works. The boot is going to be a little bit heavier, but compared to the stuff all the clog you don't get under your boots, it's actually going to end up being lighter and you're going to have much better grip. Because the thing is that AntiClogged is not rocket science. It's just a concept that works. It simply prevents stuff, if you use it right, mud, grass, dirt from sticking under your boots. And it really does a good job.
It is. It's the one, I think it's really the only football boot technology that you can evaluate on a pass-fail, basically, right? Like you can say, oh, Mercurial has a barefoot touch, or the Phantom Vision is a control boot and it's going to improve your touch, but you can't really say that it does any of those things. And there's no, like you can say, oh, Mercurial offers better traction than a Copa, but ultimately, if you're fast, you're fast. I don't think that the traction is going to put you at any kind of an advantage. But when it comes to having the bottom of your boots clogged with mud or being left completely clean for better traction, I mean, AntiClogged does exactly that. It's the one legitimately advantageous thing in the football boot industry right now. But what I will say, and I found this interesting, I've had a lot of people point it out to me, why don't pros, especially in the Premier League where soft ground boots are more prevalent, why aren't all the Nike pros wearing AntiClog?
I think it might be like a mental thing where they are used to wearing, probably most of them, their SG Pros or even their 6-stud configurations if they have that made up. It might just be that AntiClog, it does feel different than the other SG Pro boots because the sole is a little thicker. Some people might like that. Some people might, hate it. Some people might not even notice. I'm one of those people. I don't really think too much about it. And especially on the newer generations, the AntiClog outsole it's not as clumsy as it used to be. But I think it's just being, there's also a lot of players not wearing grip socks. For me, it's the same thing. Yes, the technology is there and it's more or less proven that it gives you some sort of an advantage, but not everyone uses it because they might not like the feel of it or whatnot. That's at least what I thought.
Yeah. Maybe this is a topic for another episode, but do you think, and this is what I've noticed, 'cause I just happened to catch, I don't remember if it was a U16 or U17 World Cup game. And I noticed almost all the players wearing Adidas boots were wearing laceless boots. And they're 17-year-olds, right? Is it fair to say that the younger generation of players are far more receptive to the new technologies and new concepts in football boots rather than I say old, but let's say 30 plus old players that grew up with like standard 6 studs for soft ground rather than a mixed sole, right? Because like it wasn't that long ago where mixed sole soft ground pro was coming out from Nike, but there was still a ton of Nike pros that were having these custom 6-stud soft ground layouts, and they didn't want to wear this mixed sole thing.
I think that's a very interesting topic, and we could discuss at lengths about that in another episode. But in short, I think it's about, the generational gap and what you're used to being presented with. So for the generation before us, everything they knew was basically the Copa Mundial and the Puma King top, right? And then, of course, other boots. But those really stand as the standout boots. Then came the Vapors, the Predators, and they were these like, new gimmicks, synthetic boots. What is that? I mean, we don't need that. We have our leather material. So I think it's about, what you're constantly being fed, what you constantly see. And maybe laceless boots to that young generation is just a natural thing. That's just the way it works these days. And they are more inclined to live with the lack of lockdown that you have because it might give them something else. And they look really cool. We shouldn't forget that. But maybe we should save that for later. Tell me what you think. Really quick.
I think it's totally age related, right? I think you give a 15-year-old, you show them a new product, they're like, oh yeah, give it to me, I want to try it right away. Where you give it to a 30-year-old pro that's been wearing the same boots for 3 seasons and they're like, nah, I'm happy with what I have, I don't need to try anything new, right? It's like, oh, it's Old Faithful, I don't need to change that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I just think it's interesting, right? And as much as it is like, the younger generation is far more receptive to new technologies, I think it goes to show the years and years and years of marketing that these companies have spent all this money on is I don't want to say that it didn't pay off back then, but I think more than ever it's paying off in terms of brainwashing people into thinking that they must have the newest thing to perform at the top level. And
you know what? Maybe we're wrong. Like maybe laceless boots are just what people want these days. And maybe the whole idea of wanting lockdown and responsiveness, maybe it's just a thing for us. I know that, the generation before us, they wanted leather and they wanted their Copa Mundials, and that's all they needed. And they played beautiful football. I mean, we might not have the final answer here. We just have our preferences, and the new generation, people 10, 15 years younger than us, they have other preferences, and maybe that's just the way it is.
Yeah, again, different topic for a different episode.
Yeah, let's discuss.
Hopefully you like that answer to your question that I'm not sure we answered.
But anyway, if you don't feel we answered it, you can leave another question or the same question in the comment section right down below. And the same goes for all you other guys out there. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section right down below. We love doing this. It's great to interact with you guys. So comment section right down below. If you haven't done so already, by the way, don't forget to subscribe to the Boot Nerds podcast. It is the black bubble in the middle of the screen. Hit the bell notifications button. And then if you had a good time, remember to smash the like button so we can see that you enjoyed it, and so that YouTube also shows this to more people and spreads the Bet podcast in the world to the wider audience. Of course, if you want to see what Josh is up to, go subscribe to his channel right over there. If you want to see what we're doing at Unisport, we have fun sometimes, go click the green bubble close to my head. And then with that said, I'll leave it to Josh. I'm JayMike, and I approve this message.
Yep, I think I'm going to go play in the snow.
Oh, sounds awesome. Yeah.